Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Zoom webinar. And I'm really very happy you are joining me in getting this webinar done. And it's always nice to have some audience, and also recording this so some other people who missed it can watch it later. And if you like, there will also be after the talk, it will be about 45 minutes, and I have a PowerPoint showing you with pictures. There will be a little break, so you can all go have some coffee, and then we have some questions and answers if you like this. And to start, this is a story that is really, well, I feel it's important for me and also for Rijk and other people who all started with this work, because it's about Europe. And Europe is it's my home, I can say, but a lot of things happening at the moment. Is it falling apart? Well, you see the refugees, many things are worrying us, especially in the world. And in fact, ECOintention is developed to help to heal Europe, but perhaps also other parts of the world. And it sounds really, I think, like an amazing story, but perhaps it is an amazing story. And this amazing story all starts at the beginning of the 80s. So I will take you back at the whole history of ECOintention in this Zoom meeting. And in the other one on Tuesday, I will tell you the present and more about, hopefully, about the future. And to go back, well, I go back really to the early 80s, and I will mention Irene Lutz, because she's the founder of all this work. And Irene was a very well-known German healer. She worked with in Frankfurt, and many people were visiting there. She was very, very good. She could heal with her hands. And also, that was a secret at that time, she worked with Prince Claus of the royal family in the Netherlands, who always came to Frankfurt with his driver to be helped by her. So, but in her work with working with people, she felt more and more that our natural environment was getting weaker. And it means when people are living in a weak, from energy weak environment, they also got low, they get down. And when you're down, you're more connected with your fear and with your anger, and you're not in the best mood for cooperation. So as she also saw Europe, she always talked about the organism Europe. She did daily meditations in the morning before she started with work. And always said, I have these pictures of Europe as being an organism, and I see this organism is falling apart. She always spoke as black holes. And in a way, she didn't really know what to do this, but what she felt that she was called, so to say, to develop a method to work large scale, to do something about this declining energy in the environment. So working in forests, but also in companies. And finally, to do something to help to heal Europe. But it was all in the beginning. And her friend, Marion Countess von Hunsbruch, Marion Gräfin Hunsbruch in German, and she was called at that time von Hunsbruch, but she is now von Ginand because she was divorced. Well, they both, stuck together, and Marion said, well, let me help you. Let's see if we can develop this method for large-scale healing. And they went back to the early 20s, and there were the roots of radionics on the Stanford University, where they first did some really remote balancing of agriculture areas. They took an aerial picture, put it in a kind of radionic device, and I will show you later. And they had remarkable results by these treatments, because the crops grew better and there were less pests, etc. But then the whole chemical industry came up, and this whole story disappeared. But it was taken on to the Oxford laboratories, Mr. de la Warre, and that's where they connected again and started with the first experiments in Frankfurt from few hundred meters, dwelling from one balcony to another, treating pot plants. And they were quite successful, having better growth. And slowly they started to treat small fields and finally in whole forest. And I met them in '89, and they were only with the two of them working on this. And the method was still very much in its, in the kinderschoenen, they say in Dutch. It was in the very beginning, but this inspiring idea was still there. And I will go now for this little background to my PowerPoint, and I will share the screen with you. And where is it? So this is the Institute for Center for ECOintention. And I will take you back to the center or the Institute for Resonance Therapy, because that's where it all started. And this is the project where we are working now on, and I will tell you about on Tuesday. But in fact, this was the whole dream of Irene. She said, okay, I see this organism Europe, and she always talked about Europe as not being a kind of countries with governments and being governed, but it was really an organism of people there, and also being affected of the energy in this organism. And well, this is the European Union in 2015. Sorry, I still hear a lot of noise, and I would really ask the people who are joining now to put their mics on mute, so we had a little more disturbance during the talk. Well, thank you very much. So the whole story of healing Europe is not about politics. It's all about people, about the environment, about nature. And it's also not about doing one person better than the other. It's not about right wing or left wing, because we shall see that most of the time they say, well, you can find a solution of a problem on a higher level when you go on the balcony. But much of the problems we are facing nowadays are in fact caused by a lower level. We have to go deeper to find the cause, and that's where I also will take you. So Irene always said, well, I see organism when it is healthy, that all the parts are working together, then 1 and 1 is 3. And the parts exchange energy, but also enhance each other when one is getting weaker. And well, in fact, this is what she saw in her meditations about Europe falling apart. And in fact, everything what is happening now, she predicted. Well, because when we look at the environment, etc., we think one of things happening. And this, how sad it is exactly also what she predicted in the late 80s. She saw all the streams of refugees coming to Europe, and she was very, very worried about itself. But still, now at the moment, we can do something about it. Well, when you talk about healing, and it's all about making whole. And she always talked about to say, well, there are in fact 2 forces, call it yin and yang, the masculine and the feminine. Or is healing, to bring heaven and earth together? It's just how you call it, but you can really say there's a minimum level of being whole and a maximum. And then you can really go through a transformation. You can go to a higher level that in this scope of these pictures, and many people know them from the ECOintention, you can kind of holy. And I'm showing these pictures because they're also very important in relation to the present that I will talk about on Tuesday. So this was the whole idea about healing, to bring, in fact, heaven on earth, to make whole again. And it was all based on this. Matter exists for 99 and so many zeros between the comma of space. Well, this space is not empty, because we know from quantum mechanics that this space is what we call 0-point energy. And the 0-point energy is the same what's always mentioned in all the ancient cultures as life energy. So they call it mana, prana, chi, or whatever, but is in fact what everybody always said, it's all about energy. So energy is the foundation of everything. So when you can have access to this field of energy, then you can heal, because everything is energy. And it's also something that Einstein said, so it's nothing esoteric, it's really quantum mechanics. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. He says, match the frequency of the reality you want, you cannot help, you get that reality. It can be no other way. It is not philosophy, this is physics. And this is really, the foundation also of our works, because we are changing the frequency of the energy, and that's why we are changing whole systems. And in fact, changing the frequency, that is not right, because we bring them really back to their own core basic ground tone, you can say, the core frequency every person, every system has. So everything is energy, and it also means everything radiates energy. And what we also learn in the training to learn to feel this between your hands, and everybody can do this. That's very easy. But the more practical is, and this is really going now to, okay, I hear a lot of noise, we go on, that you can really measure this energy. So when you have an environment with low energy, you know, I can show here, then we have all these parameters developed in the resonant therapy and later in ECOintention. So the soil radiance is the amount of energy that's in a floor, but also on a soil. And when the energy is low, you can really perceive a low radiance. There's already a parameter. And when the energy is high, you have a high radiance. Well, that's easy because then you know when you go into an area what it is. And when you start healing, you hopefully it goes up. And this is, in fact, I show you this picture again, because when energy is low, people are also low. They are connected with their lower chakras. And there is where your fear is, there is where your anger is, there is where your sadness is, that you're more ego-driven. So you're more down, you can say. And when the energy is high, well, people also tend to be high, or they're connected with their heart and they're connected with the highest chakras and also with their higher self or your sun or your guardian angel, whatever. But it's in fact the source what is inspiring you and connecting you with your destiny. So, and it really makes sense to bring the energy up, and everybody is also up and in a better mood. And this better mood is also better for the connection among each other. Because when energy is low, there is no connection. And this is a forest. You look from above. These are the trunks of the trees. And the trees also have a radiance. So when there is low energy, there is no connection between the trees. And when there is high energy, then you see the trees are overlapping. And here there is cooperation and support. And there is 1 and 1 is 3. This is a whole system, that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. This is cooperation and helping each other. And this is happening when energy is low. Well, there is really competition and really trying to survive and to be strong. Well, already interesting when you look at Europe nowadays, do we have this situation where we do cooperation, or do we have low energy where everybody is competing with each other? Well, to get a little bit more in the method and not too much, but you know, everything is energy and energy vibrates. Everything has its own frequency. And similar vibrations reinforce each other. That is what we call resonance. And resonance is what everybody knows. When I hit one tone here, the other one will resonate. Very strong principle, because when you have the right frequency and tone with a very small input, you can have huge and large effects. So it's something you really need to be aware of what you are doing. Well, how can we really, understand that remote balancing on a distance is possible? There we need to work with another resonance, so-called Morphic Resonance. And it's known also from family constellations that everything and company constellations has an own field with information that resonates with the place. But these fields are not local. In fact, the field of your house, of your family, is also present at the moment in my room over here. And it shows that these fields also resonate with something that is similar. It's similarity. So a ground plan or a picture is also similar with the 3D house and also resonates with the field. So I can really have information from this field when I get in resonance with this plan. But even to make it easier, when I really go in my more intuitive mode, then I go into the left side of my brain where my intuition is, and I can imagine myself something. Then I can also get in resonance with the place where my house is or somewhere else. So from this point of view, everybody is clairvoyant and everybody can be telepathy and can have connection with any place on this planet on any distance. That's no problem, and you can learn, and this is what we teach in our vocational training. So to summarize remote balancing and healing, to make it very easy, So by your heart, you can connect with a field of energy.
Ik heb hem. Ik schrok alleen even dat het scherm was.
Hello, I'm happy you joined. Can you please put your microphone on mute? So by your heart, you are connected with the energy. And with your... Thank you for putting everything on mute. It's a little bit noisy here. So with your attention, you can send any energy to everywhere, connected by the 0-point field. And with your intention, you can direct this energy, give it a meaning, give it a purpose. And these two, life energy plus information, generate a formative force. You can say it's the feminine yin force, the healing force working in every system. And when you talk about the two triangles, in fact, it's the blue one we're bringing together. Well, okay, this was a little introduction about healing. And I still would really love that everybody puts his microphone on mute. This is the Institute for Resonance Therapy in the early 90s. And it's based in Kappenberg in north of the Ruhr area, still not far from where we live. We had a wonderful building. And in fact, we were only working there with 6 people. It was Irene Lutz, Marion von Ginand, it was Rijk, and it was myself, and also Frans Lutz was involved. And we had some other people doing the balancing. So it was about 6 or 8 people we were there. And well, in fact, already then in a few years' time, the work we did took really off. We were situated in Germany, but we also had projects all over Germany. We worked in the Netherlands, we had projects in Belgium, we also worked in southern England and on the moors of on Scotland. There were projects going on in Sardinia over here. We worked on Mallorca. There were projects even near in Switzerland and also in Austria. So we were really doing a lot of work that time, and it was one of my tasks to visit all those projects. And also very important to know for you that all these projects, we had most of them, we had scientific research for doing research for the effects of all the balancing. So the method was really taking off, but in fact, to really say did we know what we are doing? Well, we learned a lot about afterwards. And the other thing was that the people paid for it and they were not really involved in the whole balancing. But then, well, it was, I think, in 1990 that Irene said, well, I think we have now enough experience. Well, let's see if we can find this organism, Europe. So one day we really sat down in the Institute with kind of map of Europe. There were us and Frans Lutz, Marion and Irene, and also Kees Zoeteman was involved. And Kees Zoeteman was quite known in Holland because he wrote Gaia Sophia, a famous book of him, and he was the second man of the Ministry of Environment. And his boss was Minister Ed Nijpels, who will also show up later in the story. So to imagine when you have a kind of map of this and you're looking for an organism, you can concentrate on this, going in your relaxed state, and you can feel if there are any boundaries, when you feel if there are boundaries of a kind of organism. So this is what we concentrated on. And this is what we found. So this is what we found, and we called it the Holon system of Europe. And this was about in 1990. So you see here a golden, not golden, it's a yellow shape. And this is in fact here, the boundary up in Norway. It goes to the North Sea. And up like here, it's Great Britain and Ireland. Here's France. And quite interestingly, you see here the Azores. Here's Gibraltar. Well, Mallorca was not in. You see southern Italy, Greece, and we go through the Black Sea. Here we have the Krim. And this is in fact, you have the Volga here and the Ural, it's here in Russia. And I still meet people from Iceland said, why are we not in? And I said, I can't help it. This is in fact what Europe, well, told us in fact, what these were the boundaries. And then we also start to look for the organs, you say, and we didn't call it organs, we call it holons, whole systems. And these are all the boundaries you see here. And here, for instance, you see the part with northern Germany and with Holland. And number 2 is over here with southern Germany, and the numbers are quite at random. Here's number 3, etc. So in total, we found about 30 holon, 30 organs, so to say. And these organs are all interacting, so they're exchanging energy with each other as being a whole organism. And we really were then trying to understand where do those boundaries come from. And we did a lot of research, and then we found that the strongest correlation was in fact with the geological structure in the soil. So this is quite interesting. So we had a company, GeoRisk, you can see their name down here. This is a study from '93. And it was quite peculiar that they really found those boundaries over here. You see this is holon 8, where we will come in a few minutes. And this is in fact also a very interesting part of the whole earth crust of Europe. But also look at this number 2. So we didn't know this was down in the soil, but it really shows that these organs of Europe are really, well structured, but it's really deep down in the soil. So it affects the energy there, but also all the processes living there. Well, and then I already showed you this. We were looking for the health of this organism. So we had the scale that time, we called it the compatibility, where you can even say very easily, it's the health of each holon, of each organ. And the scale is now called the POA. We call it nowadays the percentage of organization and adaptation, more the health of the, how well an holon and an organ can organize itself, can heal itself. And this is in fact, in the yellow, it is healthy. So this is the state of the organism Europe in the early 90s. And well, when you look at this, well, this is already not healthy. And then is what we found negative. It was the first time ever when we did this dowsing, because you can dowse on a scale the compatibility or the health. And we were all trained in such a way that this is not as subjective, but we could check on each other. And this is something we were still doing in the whole ECOintention. So one person can dowse and use a scale, but we're all trained in such a way that we can check the person, so what he is doing. So everything I show you here was all done in cooperation with the whole group by check upon check. So this was already a quite alarming picture of the organism Europe in the early 90s, because we saw here, and this is whole Eastern Europe, you have here Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary, and this was in fact the Czech Republic over here, having the most negative energy. This was that time, the whole Balkan War was still Yugoslavia over here, and there was northern Italy. And this is what Irene said, well, this is something, this is exactly the picture I see in my meditations. I see this black hole somewhere in Europe, and I see now it's really in the middle. It may be Bohemia or Czech Republic. And okay, so we were quite shocked by seeing this, because this was meaning when the energy is so low, like I showed you the picture of the cooperating trees, that all these holons were not already cooperating. They were all trying to survive, getting their own energies. The only holon was still a little bit healthy was this one with the Azora. It was still in the orange, but all the other ones were already on a very alarming low level of energy. And then we said, okay, with the method what we have, the resonance therapy at that time, but it's still developed. We worked already then on fields of about 1,000 hectares and 2,000 hectares. If we have only one needle from acupuncture, if you went put it somewhere, what would be the hotspot of Europe? And we did a lot of research, we did a lot of testing, all the holon, but what came out that the most important holon for healing Europe was in fact this one. So it was the one with the lowest energy, Bohemia, but it was also the one with the highest transformation potential, like we call it. So if you would put something, if we could do something here in the early 90s, and then you would have the largest effect all over Europe. So that's why we decided to go there. And one day, Marion Hoensbroek, she got in the airplane without knowing anybody. And she took off to Bohemia. She flew to Prague. And this is Bohemia, and is in fact also this red part you saw already on this geological map as Moravia. And also, to make it clear, we went to these areas. When you talk about Czech Republic and also Poland, it was called the Black Triangle in those days. It was the most of the forest dieback was in these areas. Everywhere where forest was dying because of all the air pollution. And Marion in the plane, well, was it coincidence or whatever? She was sitting just beside Mr. Ed Nijpels. And he was the Minister of Environment, and he was befriended with Kay Soeterman, and they were talking. And he was asking her, what are you doing? And very short time, she was, well, I'm going to, here to Czech Republic to see if we can develop some projects. And then Mr. Nijpels said, well, you can come with me because I am working with my face, with my organization in the giant mountains in Krkonoš, a national park. And FACE was a company of all the energy companies, and they were having 1 cent per kilowatt for planting trees. So already Marion was introduced to the directors of the giant mountains, and they were very happy with her offer to start balancing some areas over there. So already there, we started to treat few areas of 1,000 hectares, one here and here. And like I told you, we were always working with scientists to do the controls. And so we had control areas here, and we worked there with people of the Czech Academy of Sciences. And also, and this was quite amazing, it was a grid of monitoring plots, and each point you see here were 50 trees. They were monitored there for the vitality of the trees in this whole area. And it was something also sponsored by the European Union, but we also were involved to really check the effect of the balancing in these areas. So we were working there in a local level to hope to bring the forest back, but also on a higher level to start working for the healing of Europe. So here were the control plots, etc. Well, to show you how we worked in those days, because we did those remote balancings, and it was quite different from nowadays. We worked with radionic devices, you see here, and we had small Atari computers with software. It was all very technical. We had the maps, and you still recognize the word resonator. And also the other ones, you see the fractals, we were all put in here, and we had all these balancing stations for doing the remote balancings. And we also work with a lot of mathematical programs. We could change the resonators in many shapes. It was another program. So you see, it was very technical approach. We work with Julia, with fractal geometry. You see fractals in nature, in geometry, and also in the algebra. There's repeating small patterns everywhere. And it was a very technical approach of balancing. We do it completely different nowadays. In fact, we don't use any devices anymore. It's fact that most of the time I call it paperwork coming from the heart, but that's how it was done those days. So the two projects were already happening there. And then Marion, she heard about this place here in Krušný hory in the Iron Mountains in Erzgebirge. And it was the same situation. It's everywhere was forest dieback, and it was a very depressed area because the whole area was really ducked away for the brown coal industry. And here you see Most, it was a little place, and this was all, well, dug away by huge, huge machines for brown coal that was burned and caused all this pollution. But on this hill was a very famous castle. This castle was called Ježeří. And it was a very famous castle on the whole Czech history because Goethe was there and many cultural important meetings happened there. But this castle was threatened to really go slide downhill by all this digging for the brown coal. And one person was really protecting this castle with his life, as was Dr. Marek. He was sleeping there and living there for stopping the machines for going there. And Marion thought, well, this is a very important place to go there and to meet this man. And she went there and she came and he was said, well, I was waiting for you. That was already another very coincidence. And then she showed him this map of Europe. And it was a quite moving moment. He said, well, knew you were coming with something from Europe. And then he went away and he came back with another map. And it was this map. And when you compare the two shapes, they're quite the same. But this is a map of Lady Europe, of Queen Europe, about the 15th century. And he said, I was keeping this for you. And here you can see Bohemia as being the heart of Europe. So it was quite amazing that he came with this map and she came from so far away. And it was also for us a big, convincing that we were on the right path. And still we have this map of Queen Europe also on the front of our brochure. And it was also known when you really talk about Bohemia being the heart. He did a lot of studying that it's really the meeting point from the cultures, from the East, from the West. It came a lot of important cultural impulses from the astronomy, and also Jan Hus, who started the Reformation, started all in Bohemia. And you see in this area the southern species having their borders and also coming up there. So it's really a part of exchange. So we developed also a project over there. And also, sorry, we had there the scientists control plots during the research. And here you see this Most. And well, we had really amazing research. You see, this is from 93, 96. And already you see there was more growth in the treated areas compared to the control areas. And it was really amazing in such an area. And then the scientists said, yes, it was not significant. You can really see there was a huge improvement over there. And nowadays it looks really amazing. The whole area really recovered. And also the castle is restored. You see it over here. This is still Most. It's just the same angle. And also there's a lot of reforestation in the whole area. Another project we started over then was a Unesco Biosphere reserve of about Krivoklat of about 70,000 hectares. And I'm showing you this because already I told you Ed Nijpels was involved, and also, the directors of the national parks. And this was owned by Count, I forgot his name, on Hoensbroek. And this was also the UNESCO said, please go ahead and balance this area. So it's the largest, very beautiful, it's still existing with a castle over there. This was another project we developed. And this was in fact the last one. It was called Orlik. It was a private property of 9,000 hectares and it was owned by this man. And this is Karl Schwarzenberg. At that moment he was Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic. And he always was backing up our work. And well, for a few years he was nominating for president of the Czech Republic. But I also visited him in the Rajin in his office. And tried to explain him everything about the resonant therapy biophase, and he didn't say a word. He was always looking to me, and at the end said, well, it's okay, you can balance my area. So he was also involved. So we were working at that time on a very high level, but to tell you, nobody really down on the ground level was really involved. And also, well, this man heard about his work. I think everybody knows him, Mikhail Gorbachev. He was also told about our work in Europe, and he said, well, this is true. I really feel this organism of Europe exists and also want to support it. And he said, I want you to really to develop a project also on a very important acupuncture point somewhere in Russia. So the Green Cross, also by Fred Matzer, funded this project. And then we found that a very important place was quite near Lake Ladago, quite near St. Petersburg. So we also went there to develop a project over there. You can see here.
St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg, and the whole Nizhny Swirsky Reserve was over here, and it was Ladenia, Poland. So a beautiful area, and that was the largest project we did. Then it was about 40,000 hectares, and we cooperated there with the also Czech scientists and scientists from the Russia Academy of Sciences. It's a beautiful area with bears and other things, but also a lot of monasteries, but the whole area was really, there's been a lot of fighting. The Germans turned the monastery in concentration camps. And it was a very horrible situation when I arrived there the first time. In fact, my book, The Universe Loves a Happy Ending, A Scheppend Leven, started with this project. And it was in fact all in the context of this healing of Europe. I didn't mention it in the book. And also over here, we had a lot of monitoring plots. In fact, we brought it over there, this European way of monitoring forest health. It was done with the Czech scientists. So everywhere we came, we tried to do something with the people at site to also to help them to develop eco-tourism. But they were really not involved in the whole balancing and not involved in the whole energetic part of it. So this was in fact all taking off, and when I'm talking about this project, but it was the end of the 90s. And well, you see also there we had very good results on this huge area. This was the defoliation, so the more leaves and the more needles a pine has, the healthier it is, and you really see that it was really a decrease in this huge area of the defoliation. Everybody was very happy with it. Well, and then something happened, and there was nothing more. And this, in fact, also the stop of my talk, because this is a very sudden finish of this story. So it was 97, and suddenly everything collapsed. It was a very strange year. And because already then, at that moment, I was traveling a lot. We were working with the 6 of us. And already Irene Lutz, who was all leading this, she already got sick a few years ago. And Rijk Bols, who was still my partner in this work, took over. And she was also getting sick after work. And I was the one visiting all these projects, and we had beautiful and huge results, and we were really taking off. But then we really found, well, if we are doing this and everybody is getting sick of it, there must be something wrong what we did. And also the Russians asked about it. So we were very happy you are healing our reserve, but can't we do it ourselves? And I also thought, well, we are only 6, 8 people, and I don't think we can really heal Europe with such a small group of people. And also the method, we were working with the radionic device, that there were still many things I really felt we didn't know that we were doing wrong. And then it's interesting when you see when the energy is low, it's also getting between people. So it was also getting between us, and it was getting, I came back from the project, and it was a very, well, tensed and very sharp and angry atmosphere. And well, I was thrown out of the institute, and well, it was in fact the end of everything. So I left then in 97, 98, and also Rijk left. And in effect, in a few years' time, also the Institute for Resonance Therapy closed. So that was a very abrupt finish of something very beautiful we started. And there is life after this story because we are still there with the Center for ECOintention, and many, many very, very positive things happened. And perhaps this was also the point for transformation, for something starting new. But at the end of the 90s, in fact, it was all finished and there was nothing more. So this was a little bit, I tried to do it in the 45 minutes I told you, and was a little bit speeding up at the end, I know. But to give you this brief history of the ECOintention, really to do this work large scale, to improve the environment for people and for nature, and working on it large scale was the base of this work and still is of us. And in the next talk on Tuesday, I will really show you, I will pick it up from this moment, what happened afterwards. Well, we started writing the books and we started training with the vocational training. And now we have lots of people working with us. And it's not any longer 6 people doing this, but we're now with a whole group working on this healing of Europe. But somewhere else, it's not more anymore the hotspot in Bohemia, but it's still perhaps more to the neighbors. Okay, well, I thank you for so far for watching me and listening to this story. And I also see a lot more people now, they all came to us. I would propose that we have a little break, about 10-15 minutes. And if you like, I will come back to you and we can have some questions. And I also will stop the recording of this. Let's see how I do that. Somewhere, then we can also put this on the internet and show you. Okay, thank you very much. And